Hey guys, so here is part 2 of the bodyweight exercises to do at home. First part was last week's video I did for chest and back. And so this week I want to get into talking about legs. And of course, with any exercise routine, it's best to stretch beforehand. Some great leg exercises that I like to do are the adductor stretch. And what's going on is that I'm having my feet wider than shoulder stance and leaning to one side to really stretch out those muscles on the inside of the leg. It's really important to stretch out the adductors because what we are doing here is releasing any probable tension that might come into play when later we perform the squats and the lunges. The Latissimus dorsi stretch is great for leg exercises, especially if a squat is part of your routine, because what it does is make sure that that muscle is not overactive, because when it's overactive, it will cause a lower back arch when performing a squat and will lead to low back pain or injury. It's fairly simple. I did it on the last video. You're just going to be on your hands and knees, and then you're going to extend your arms with your thumb pointed upward, and you're going to just hold that for 30 seconds. Alright, so here we have the biceps femoris stretch. This muscle is one of your major hamstring muscles. You're going to want to start by lying on the ground, laying on your back. You're going to raise one leg, bending at the hips and bending at the knee. And then you're going to cross that leg towards the other side and then extend back at the knee to really stretch that muscle. You're definitely going to feel it closer to the outside of your knee. That's the short head of this muscle, which is one of the main parts that we are actually stretching. So the main reason for stretching this muscle is that it actually has a large part in playing with the positioning of your feet during the squat and lunge. And so we want to minimize any of that effect whenever we perform those exercises. So last week I did a couple of core exercises, but no balance exercises. So this week I want to focus on that since we're working the legs. The first one here is the single leg balance. It's a very simple exercise. All you do is stand with a neutral position, especially keeping the head pointed forward, your eyes pointing forward. Find a spot in the wall or somewhere where you can focus on, and then you just lift up on one leg and hold that for a certain amount of time, maybe around 30 seconds or so. You definitely also want to make sure that your core is engaged, so essentially almost like you are pulling your navel towards your spine and like you're sucking in your gut, but not quite sucking in your gut. Another alternative to this is if balancing is super easy for you, you can do what's called the single leg balance reach. And instead of just holding the leg up in the air to balance, you're going to move one leg forward, hold it for about a second or two, pull it back in. All the movement should be at the hips, and whenever you move the leg back, your glutes should be what's pulling the leg back. It shouldn't be your knee. You should be keeping your knee as straight as possible when doing this exercise. All right, the next balance exercise for those that have a bit more balance control and stability is the single leg hip rotation. You're going to be balancing on one leg while the lifted leg in the air, you're going to, what it's called is internally rotating at the hip, but you're going to essentially rotate your leg to where the knee is pointed to the side. You want to try to make sure that there's minimal movement on the balancing leg. You want to make sure that that stays as still as possible. And then you're going to slowly return the lifted leg back to its original position, and you do this for the amount of reps that you've set. The reason for doing these balance exercises are for posture and stability. They are helping to strengthen your core while also, optimizing your posture alignment. All right, moving into resistance. you can see here that I am doing the classic bodyweight squat. Now, most people will probably know how to do a squat or have done a squat, but there is actually a certain posture that you should be aware of so that the right muscles are moving and that you don't increase your chance of injury, because any squat with weight added to it will definitely increase your chances of getting any kind of injury or anything like that. So the best alignment is to have your feet at shoulder width apart. You want to make sure your toes are pointed forward and not outward toward the sides like you see most people at the gym. Once you're in this position, you can have your arms upward like I do. You can have them at your side. I put the arms forward just to kind of help with some counterweight, but you're going to want to move through the hips. So the first movement when you go down are your hips going back, and then you lower down. And then when you lift up, you want to imagine your glutes squeezing together, contracting, and that's what pushes your body upward into the upright position. All right, next I'm doing a classic lunge, except instead of walking in a line forward, I'm using my front foot and pushing off and coming back to the starting position. And then, after performing a certain amount of reps on that foot, I'll switch over to the next foot, or you can alternate depending on how you feel. Now, if you feel like that this is super easy, especially with no weights, what you can do to challenge yourself to really make sure that your core is engaged is to do a lunge to balance. And so it's the same principle as pushing off from the front foot, but instead of returning to the starting position as you would with both feet on the ground, that front foot will stay in the air and you will try to balance yourself as best you can before going into the next rep. And then after halfway through your set, you'll switch legs and perform that exercise on the other leg. Another challenging progression that you could do instead is to change the plane in which you're doing the lunge. The traditional lunge is in the sagittal plane, which is if you divided yourself in certain parts of your body, your movement along that plane is what is going on. So without getting too wordy about it, if you want to switch into another plane, which would be called the frontal plane, it's very similar to doing an adductor stretch, but instead you're coming back up to starting position like you would for a lunge. And the last one is what's called a transverse plane, and that is essentially twisting your body to the side. So as you can see here, when I go into the lunge, I am pivoting on my back foot as I turn to the side and then coming back to starting position by turning backwards or pivoting my back foot towards the facing forward. Thank you all so much. I appreciate you watching this video. If you have any questions or would like to talk with a personal trainer about starting your fitness journey, please reach out to me. I would love to help you. If you want to catch any more of these videos, make sure you subscribe or follow, like the video if you liked it, and as always, stay happy, stay healthy, and stay hydrated.